and today is all about answering your questions about our process for evaluating call for proposals, writing really good proposals, getting accepted, all of that. So I have some things that I can share. I know we started with some questions in the original live chat, and I can jump over to there to see what we have, or if anyone wants to just throw something. Yeah, we're in a digital transformation as we speak. Yes, we are. If anyone wants to throw anything in the chat, I'm going to start off with the way we usually start off, which is a quick overview of what our process is. I know Mira asked about that in the original chat. So this is sort of the very down to dirty how a bill becomes a law when it comes to how a proposal becomes a session on the program. So we have the call for proposal process, which as of today, which is February 26th, we have the DevLearn 2019 call for proposal up, but this applies to any of our calls for proposal. The proposals go up usually for about 3 weeks. And once they're done, we pull all the proposals and start our reviewing process. And how many proposals we receive does depend on the event. DevLearn tends to have substantially more proposals than we have space for, though. So we might have about 120 to 140 speaking slots and may get, for DevLearn, about 9 times that many. So a lot of our process is just kind of narrowing things down more and more throughout the evaluation process. And we use a multi-step process to do that. So we start with each one of us on the programming team. So that's myself, Mark Britz, and David Kelly reading through each proposal. And so we don't use any kind of automatic filtering. We don't use any keyword searches. We have human eyes on every single one. And at first, we read them all separately. So we don't compare them against each other, and we don't compare our own reviews. No AI at all is out. There's not really a good way to identify keywords that are right for our proposals. So it really just is that human touch. And, that means that there's not really a specific way to word your proposals that will magically catch our eye, but it does mean that if overall your proposal is a good story, which is something a human eye will catch, not AI at this point, that it can resonate really well. So at this point, what we're doing is we're looking at the proposal in isolation and just asking ourselves, could this fit on the schedule for the event that we're evaluating it for? So not, is it the best out of all of them? Because at this point, we're just reading everyone individually. But, if it was on the program, would it feel like a fit? And, all our events are a little different. So DevLearn, we might have something that would work on that program that wouldn't work on a program for a more niche event like Realities 360. So at this point, we give everything a yes, a no, or a maybe. So yes and no, that's pretty self-explanatory, but a maybe means that there's either something that we want to talk about with everyone else, or we're sort of on the fence and want to see where everyone else landed with their feelings on the proposal. So after we finish that first review, we have every single one evaluated separately. This is weeks of work. So if you're wondering why it takes so long to find out about your proposal status, when you have a human reading every single one, it's a bit of a time suck, but an important one. And also, Mark and I tend to find that you can only read so many before they start merging together. So we'll do, about a handful, like maybe 10 in a row tops, and then we'll take a break so that we don't start merging them together in our mind. It's always important. And that gives everyone a really fair shot of getting a fresh set of eyes on them. So after that point, then what we do is we compare and contrast our own reviews. We all work remotely, and so we use a single Excel spreadsheet to put all of our different reviews in, so our yes, no's, and maybes, and any notes we made. And then we come together to sort of discuss where we're at. So anywhere where we're in alignment, all yeses, all no's, that's pretty easy. All yeses move to the next stage, all no's stop there. But anytime where we're not in full alignment, then we schedule some online time to discuss. And so not in full alignment doesn't necessarily mean one person thinks it's amazing or one person doesn't. It's typically one of us tends to have some additional context for it. Maybe we've seen the speaker before, maybe we've read something that they've written on the topic, maybe our own personal experience, because we all come from different areas in L&D, is informing our views. So we'll talk about that, explain why we gave it the review we did, and then settle on whether it's a yes or no. So another stage of reviews, narrowed it down a little more. The final stage is where we all actually get together in person because we find it works a lot better in person than online, where we start looking at actual programs. So this goes really manual. You may have seen photos of this online. We get together in a room, we put up chart paper with a little box for every single one of the session slots we have. And then we print out all of the current yeses onto Post-its with the key information, and then start looking at how they all fit together. So for each session block, we're looking for a range of different topics. We don't want to have 6 video topics in one block of sessions and 0 in another, because that's a little frustrating. We're looking for a breadth of different voices, so experienced people as well as people who haven't spoken for us before. We actually make a point of having at least 20% new to the Guild speakers at every event. So if you've never presented at a Guild event, we're definitely trying to prioritize bringing in new voices. We look for a breadth of different individuals. We try not to give people more than one session at first, just to make sure that we have as many different voices as possible. Same with companies. We try and have a good breadth of that as well. And yeah, so this is a lot of, the reason we do it on Post-its, it's a lot of moving to try and continue to have that balance throughout the entire program. And once we have that, that's the set program. But we tend to have substantially more yeses than we have space for. So what we do is we take anything that hasn't made it onto the program, but that we still had a yes, and we make that our alternates category. So if we have a cancellation, and that does tend to happen throughout the conference planning process, it's just natural, then we go to that alternate section. And in the alternates, we'll look for a session that's as close to the one that canceled as possible and reach out to those speakers. So sometimes if you get a no on your proposal, we might reach out to you at a later date and say, hey, someone canceled. We'd really love to have your session on the program. So that is the really quick version of how we go through the selection process. In the previous link, or the previous chat, I mentioned that we also have some posts on the eLearning Guild Twist website all about this process if you want to see some photos of us all in a dark room with no windows and a whole bunch of Post-its. So let's jump to some of the other questions in the chat. Mira asked, would you say that classroom topics are less desirable than e-learning topics, even if classroom includes technology? So the eLearning Guild events tend to focus very much on the intersection of technology and learning. So we don't tend to have a lot of sessions that are on strictly classroom. We'll tend to make space for things that are, blended learning. But if the session is predominantly just classroom, it's not exactly our audience. Depending on the topic, there may be exceptions to that, but I would say it's not less desirable, but just less of a fit for the audience we have at our events. So I'm going to jump over to the old chat. I know we had James ask about proposing a session with an idea that might have been covered before at an event. And definitely, if you want to propose something, chances are someone's possibly talked about that topic to some extent or another. Always welcome. What I do say is think about what's your unique take on the topic. Is there something special that you bring to it? So dozens of people would have talked about how to use your smartphone for shooting video, but is there something unique that you have on that topic that you can share? And once again, keep adding questions to the chat. I see I've got David in the chat as well, adding some context. So Michelle asked about demographics that we're targeting for DevLearn. So it's, like I said, A lot of the people who come to our events are coming because they're interested in that intersection of technology and learning. And that can cover a wide breadth of different roles, from instructional designers, instructional technologists, um, people who do multimedia for learning. We have people coming in from the management and strategy side as well. So it's a combination of practitioners and people at the management level and above. So as I mentioned, we tend to focus more on digital learning experiences rather than classroom, just because you can only be so many things to so many people. Uh, I will say that our attendees are very interested in practical application. So going beyond just theory and talking about really using things in the real world, the actual challenges, having people who are willing to share about, when things went right, but also the honesty about when things didn't go so right. This is really a peer-to-peer opportunity for sharing. So positioning your proposal all about, as though you're talking to a peer, so not too formal, but, work appropriate, and also thinking about what their problems are that your session might be able to help solve is a really important one. And if anyone has any other questions about our target audience for these events, feel free to just pop them in the chat. And there was another question or comment in the old chat about proposals not having been accepted. So if you happen to have a proposal that's gone in or multiple and it isn't accepted for a program, one thing that we always offer is the opportunity to talk to one of us on the programming team about some additional personalized feedback, because the emails that we send out are sort of a generic yes or no. But if you're looking to learn about what you can do differently for next year, we're always happy to schedule some time. We can either send you additional feedback by email or schedule time for a phone call or a video conferencing call to talk in more depth. So, as much as we make that offer all the time, it is something that we tend to find not a lot of people take us up on, and we remember the people who do. It's not a guarantee that you'll get on a future program, but if you do schedule one of those chats with us, we're only human. We are going to remember who's reached out and said, I want to get on the program. I would like to strengthen my future proposals. What can I do for that? And Clint asked if there's a track or appetite for experiences leading L&D teams. So the vast majority of our events do have a management and strategy track, and that's absolutely a topic that could work for that track. So yes. Yeah, Tracy, thanks for saying that you had taken us up on the offer and we made some great suggestions. Yeah, and that's, it's really nice to be able to have those conversations, because it can be a great dialogue where, I'll say, here's what we thought of the proposal, and someone might say, oh, well, that's not what I intended. I'd actually meant this. And, it gives us a lot more context for what your original vision for your session was. Kelly asked about how important it is to have an online presence. It is a component sometimes of how we review proposals, but it's not remotely the only one. If we happen to know someone from them being online or having had interactions with them, particularly if we've seen them talk about the topic that they're proposing about, that can to some extent help us better understand the proposal. But it's not a requirement. And a lot of what we're really evaluating is what's the story and the narrative in the proposal we're reading. So an online presence might nudge something, but it is much more about what's in the proposal. So, if you don't happen to have a really huge online presence, it's not going to stop you from getting a proposal accepted on our program. But have an online presence. I mean, it is a great way to connect with other people in our industry throughout the year. I'm just looking at the chat now. Mark got a haircut for today's event. We'll have to post some photos to Twitter so all of you can see. So I have a question here about our standards for pre and post conference workshops. So for Guild events, we only do pre-conference workshops, and we do evaluate them slightly different because a pre-conference workshop, we only have a very small number of them on the program. They are something that we ask attendees to pay an additional fee for. And so that does change how we evaluate them. We're always looking at them from the perspective of not just, is this a really interesting topic? Do I feel like the speaker has a lot to say about this? Does this feel like it solves people's problems? But we do have to consider, is this something that someone's going to want to spend a full day on? Is it something that there is a market for people paying extra for that session? And so there are some topics that are really amazing in a 1 hour session that people are all on board for, but they may have a bit more trouble justifying the expense for a full day on. And so that is a component. And then there's other things that we know people are incredibly excited about getting to spend extra time on and can very easily justify the expense. So for instance, something like project management is one that we've found that there's a lot of interest in going to pre-conference workshops. And so it's one we offer regularly. We do always like mixing things up though. So, we don't want to run the exact same pre-conferences every single time. So we do really welcome new ideas. And if you have any questions about if something might work well for our target market as a pre-conference workshop, please reach out to myself, Mark, or David. Honestly, if there's one really big takeaway that I can give all of you for ways to make this whole experience of proposing for conferences easier, it's reach out to us. David, Mark, and I are very active online. We are very accessible by email. If you send an email to programs@elearningguild.com, then that is a way to reach all three of us, and the first one of us who's available can jump on. And we are always happy to have conversations with people beforehand, answer any questions. We regularly offer to review people's drafts of their proposal and give them early feedback. So we can't give you feedback about, will this definitely make it onto the program, because we don't know what else other people will submit, but we can tell you the kind of feedback we would have on the current draft and ways that you can continue to polish it to help it get the best shot possible. So please take us up on that. And the further out from a deadline you ask us about that, the easier it is for us to fit in. So it's trickier to fit in really deep feedback when it's 24 hours before the deadline, but get us a week or two before. We can usually schedule a call or write quite a bit of feedback in email. So please take us up. So any other questions in the chat? Just give it another second, but we may have kind of covered everything. All right, well, thanks everyone for being so open to, going through our technical challenges and popping over to this other live chat. Really, really great questions. I'm hoping that we see a number of you, if not all of you, proposing for DevLearn or our future events. And as always, if you have any questions, if questions come up an hour from now that you're like, oh, I wish I had asked that, reach out. Once again, it's programs, so programs with an S, at eLearningguild.com, and we're happy to help. And have a lovely day.